guess connected with security, because when we are talking about transformation of international order, security is number one in a different perspective. So our dean, and in a few seconds we will change a little bit our agenda, and we will go to the plenary session. And thank you once more for having time to be with us. I would like to invite rector and professor, because we are doing the plenary session, and 5 speakers. We have not so much time, and it's my great request just to finish your speech in 12 minutes, then we'll be on time, because as I remember, 1:45 is a coffee break, and we should relax after this plenary session. And may I ask rector, you prepare paper related to international relation from the perspective of biologists. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Akalios. And can I have my... And I think, stand here if possible. Can we have the slide? I will be very quick. I've said 12 minutes. Just as I said in the beginning, that what we need to be thinking about interdisciplinary work. In this modern era, the slides, you have my slides? Magda is out, and my time yet doesn't start yet.
Okay.
Or you can, let me call Magda. You can talk to her if she has it. Otherwise, you can ask somebody else to save time. She's not picking.
I have a presentation. If you allow me, I can share.
Yes, somebody else.
So we change the program a little bit of our session, and a distinguished guest from Armenia, Professor Armen. The floor is yours, and then we come back to presentation of the rector. Okay? I don't know, but maybe this one. Yeah.
Yes, sure. Dzień dobry. Hello, dear participants of the conference, but I'd like to say some words to greet everyone here in my Armenian language. Some words. Բարև ձեզ հարգելի մասնակիցներ կոնֆերանսի, ես ողջունում եմ ձեզ Հայաստանից, շնորհակալություն, որ հրավիրել եք, ցանկանում եմ ձեզ առողջություն և խաղաղություն։
Poczekajmy chwilkę, bo prezentację ma tutaj gość, a teraz nie ma pana technicznego, więc nie wiem, czy ja mogę tą relację tutaj zamknąć i otworzyć prezentację. O, jest już pan.
I am pleased to welcome you and to say a word yes, word of gratitude to others and participants of this conference. I am not a political scientist myself, but as a modest scholar of the sociology of art, I'll try to answer important political questions in the context of art and culture. I wish you interesting reports, sharp questions, and professionally worthy answers. Now my presentation. Yes, the other page. Yes. Dear participants, the Armenian nation is one of the oldest modern nations. It came into the world from such depth of centuries when not only modern European nations didn't exist, but also the peoples of ancient antiquity and Hellenes were barely born. The history of Armenia dates back to the 3rd century BC. Over the millennia, Armenians have repeatedly lived through all different positions, from powerful states to the brink of total annihilation. It is not known on what principle, but it is a fact that this nation, Armenian nation, was chosen for the most complex history scenario, full of events, evil surprises, and dead ends. Sorry, but help me, please. This is Echmiadzin, religion center in Armenia. Cathedral was built in 303 AC. Defying time and rejecting loss of history through immense disasters and losses, the Armenian people have reached the 21st century with dignity. While many of the nations living in the neighborhood who even created empires have not withstood the test of centuries and forever disappeared from the stage of history. Another picture. The first Armenian state was formed in 1032 BC. It was called the Kingdom of Ararat. Continuous wars with the Assyrians did not give it a long life, and soon the kingdom lost its power. In place of the Ararat kingdom, a new kingdom, the Kingdom of Van. In this picture, you can see the Van, the first capital of Armenia. The latter is known as Urdu. In 189 BC, King Artaxerxes, here please, Artaxerxes sits on the throne. He develops the country, turning it into a powerful state, which is called Great Armenia. Then, in 995 BC, Tigran, first of all, the King Tigran, first of all resolves the issue with the country that posed the most serious threat, Parthia. Tigran's domains stretched from the Caucasus to the Red Sea, from the Mediterranean Sea to India. The total territory under the influence of the king amounted to 3 million square kilometers. Then, in 301, Armenia was the first country in the world to adopt Christianity as a state religion, which led to the rapprochement of Armenia with Rome. In the period of several trials, the creation of the Armenian written language in 396 played this decisive role in preserving the national identity and of the Armenian people. Its creator was the genius Mesrop Mashtots. Writing was a powerful weapon for national self-preservation. In the 6th century AD, Armenia lost its independence and subsequently went through difficult times due to attacks by Romans, Persians, Seljuk Turks, Mongols, Arabs, and others. We'd like to mention a sorrowful period in the history of Armenian people, the Armenian genocide in the Ottoman Empire in 1915-18, in which about 1.5 million Armenians were exterminated. As a result of the genocide, the majority of the world's Armenian population suffered. Most of the Armenians living in Western Armenia on the territory of the were killed. The smaller part was scattered all over the world. Most of the population of present-day Armenia are migrants from Western Armenia. Today, there is not a single Armenian who doesn't have an ancestor of suffered from the genocide. As a result, the Armenian people were scattered all over the world. And according to the results of sociological research of the Center of Armenian History in Yerevan, there are about 13 or 15 million Armenians living in the world. Since the late 80s, the start and the second Armenian state were formed, the Republic of Artsakh, which existed until 2023. At this time, not only in Armenia, but all over the world is not stable. It is Israel, Ukraine, Syria, and Armenia. Now Armenia is going through difficult times because about 130,000 Armenians from the Republic of Artsakh were forced to move to Armenia. Government now is doing everything necessary to help these people from Artsakh, and there is a lot of help from Armenian communities from different countries. Armenia is rich not only in history and culture, but also in its heroes who are known and appreciated by the whole world. Among such people, I'd like to mention Ayvazovsky, Komitas, Aram Khachaturian, Martiros Saryan, Charles Naur, Hovanes Tumanyan, and others. But I'd like to dwell on two of them. These are Charles Naur and Komitas. Charles Naur, born on May 22, 1924 in Paris, was a renowned French Armenian singer, songwriter, and actor. His parents, Armenian immigrants, led the Armenian genocide and faced many hardships in France. Despite and struggles, Ansnaur's passion for music flourished. Through his 7-decade career, Ansnaur wrote and recorded over 1,020 songs in various languages, becoming famous of his emotive voice and more poignant lyrics. His hits like La Bohème and She became timeless classics. As a vocal advocate for Armenian genocide recognition and supported humanitarian causes, he served as Armenia's honorary consul in Switzerland. According to sociological research conducted by Time magazine and CNN, Ansnaur is recognized as the best pop performer of the 20th century. He passed away on October 1, 2018. Behind a legacy of resilience and inspiration, making him a source of immense pride for Armenians worldwide. Then, Komitas. Komitas was born in Ottoman Empire in Kutuya, was a seminal Armenian composer, ethnomusicologist, and priest. He collected and preserved thousands of Armenian folk songs, laying the foundation for Armenian national music. He dedicated humanist. Komitas believed in the power of music to uplift and unite people. His work was tragically interrupted by the Armenian genocide in 1915, during which he was arrested and deported. The trauma from this event severely affected his mental. He spent his remaining years in a psychiatric hospital in Paris. Komitas passed away in 1935. He is remembered as both a brilliant musician and humanist whose legacy continues to inspire and preserve Armenian cultural heritage. And last page. The Armenian nation has gone through many difficult its life, and the lessons of history show that wars don't always solve problems between peoples and countries. Of course, we live in the age of scientific and technological progress. Modern weapons are sometimes surprising, but there is a weapon stronger than tanks and machine guns. This weapon is called art, culture, and beauty. Even now, in such a difficult socio-political stage in the life of Armenia, we rely on the representatives of the church, art and culture. Based on the results of sociological research conducted by the Armenian History Center in Yerevan, thanks to the Armenian Apostolic Church, Gregorian Church, we exist as a nation until today. As they say, beauty will save the world. Dear friends, thank you for your attention. I have met the time limit. Thank you very much. Dziękuję.
Thank you.
And sorry, my poor English.
No,
Thank you.
it's not so poor as us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, thank you for coming to Olsztyn. It's not so easy from Armenia, Yerevan. And then thank you for this presentation about the history and heritage of Armenian people. We know that your history is so long. When I went to Yerevan and I saw some signs about the anniversary of the city, 2,800 old, so it's an old civilization. Okay, thank you. And then we are waiting, we are preparing your presentation of Professor Zapta. Yeah, so just be patient. In, I think, 30 seconds, presentation will be ready, and then ale nie ma wejścia na pendrive'a, wszystkie zajęte. This is, but okay, it's time for relax, for reflection. You know, 2 years ago, American Political Science Association organized a great conference in hybrid, and it was totally collapsed because even in the United States, it's So it's we can prepare, but practice is always with some, I can say, events which we have no. We can't predict such a situation. Yes, so in plenary session there are perspectives for international order from different position, because our distinguished guest from University of Karachi will focus on security as a prime concern of state in new world order. And this is also security, the first, our aim, but how to ensure just to produce more arms, to be in arm race, the leader, or just to think that, and it costs a lot of money. We are proud in Poland that we will spend 4% of GDP for military and to be more secure. Okay, but maybe after 1 year, 5% will be not enough. And then what? Some politician will say 10%. And if you want to spend more money for military, it means what? That it's not enough money for other sectors of social activity and economic activity. So, dear Rector, Professor Zabda, the floor is yours.
You'll be very fast because to save time. Just my message was, why in this new era, new world order, we need to work together. And will you play slides very quickly, because I have a few slides for you and it takes time. So now you have to work interdisciplinary. For example, if I ask the international relation researcher about Security Council Resolution 1540 or Biotoxin Weapon Convention, for example, who signed it, who didn't sign it, and as we were having a history, even in this modern world, killing human beings for some sake. So, and there are some disciplines that are very really dangerous, like bioweapon. You can inject in a human being and he is a bomb. He can go anywhere and spread it. You have seen Corona. Can I have slides? So here are the two things I'm talking today. BWC, we call it Biotoxin Weapon Convention, and the other one is Security Council Resolution 1540. So the dual use of education, we had a survey in European 29 countries, and scientists, what is dual use of education? They say, oh, we don't know what is it. I'm doing science and I know I don't do anything bad. But there are some people who can misuse science. So that is what we call it. And in this modern world where there is a globalization, there are threats like you saw, synthetic biology, new viruses that can be made in the lab. And then there are, so the innovation versus dual use risk. What should we do? How should we protect human being? And then for that, we have international regulation that wants the nation to have national regulation. Do we have it? These are the questions. Can I have next, please? So in this concept, when we talk about the New World Order, that is the dramatic shift from geopolitical, economical, and social in the world. We have to understand the implication of these changes and the dual use of education. So we need to promote awareness, culture, responsibility, etc. Next, please. So here are some examples. We had anthrax attacks in 2001. After 9/11, scientists were crazy to get some money in US. He sent letters to the top leadership and getting money, but finally it was disclosed that he was a scientist, he just did for money. So there are issues then COVID-19 is another example, recent example that we had. So for that, there are regulations. Like I said, Biotoxin Weapon Convention, there is a Security Council resolution. So for the convention, it was in 1925, Geneva Protocol of World War II, where Poland and many countries had devastated by the human actions, I would call it, let it simply, leave aside the politics. So that is the still those memories we have. So for that, to avoid any dangerous situation of biological weapon, this was the convention, and then in 75 there was more development, and there was a chemical convention, and they designed a web of prevention. How can we prevent it? Through legislation, etc. Next, please. So the obligation that each party is responsible not to produce, stockpile, or not to transfer biological weapon to other countries. So there are various articles that you can use biology for peace, but you cannot use biology for other purposes. And that you can never in any circumstances develop or stockpile microbial or other biological agents. This is very strict. But for peaceful purposes, like diagnostics, other biologists understand what is peaceful, what is non-peaceful. So, but sometimes there are loopholes that they can misuse it, that they can, biosecurity, biosafety issues that we have. And then is a Security Council Resolution 1540 that again has member states to have and enforce effective measure against the proliferation of nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons. So we have to understand all this. And that is the objective, is to prohibit non-state actor to have an access to these weapons. How can we protect all that? And so that is to add to the workforce laws, such laws, the countries. I don't know whether if I ask scientists of IR, whether you have some legislation in your country for biological weapons. So there will be a question. Usually, it's not that quick by the many countries that they have it. And this is what we were debating in UN. I was representing the academia, that how much they know about all this, the Security Council resolution. So we were having debate and we were encouraging views about all this. But let me give credit to Polish Academy of Sciences. This was in 2007, where we have an inter-academy partnership in Italy, where the world academies are member. I, as a Pakistani academy, we were in Polish Academy 3-4 times, and we developed this dual use of education mechanism, how to do awareness with the scientists. So this is the credit that I give it to Polish Academy of Sciences. They were very vibrant, and we had several meetings, and now people understand a little bit about this. So there are two things, biosafety and biosecurity. Just to understand you, the biosafety is to protect people from the germs, and the biosecurity is to protect germs from the people, so that they could not take it away. They could not misuse it. And this is the line between good and bad, dual use, where you can use for civilian, for energy, like you can use nuclear energy for peace, you can use nuclear bomb for destruction. So there is a thin line between the use and abuse, and you have to understand that. Next, please. And again, if I explain it very simply, for peaceful purposes in biology, diagnostic, drugs, vaccine, antiviral. Another side, you have bioweapon, you have suspected mobile things, you can inject to the human, you can spread it through the animals, spread it to the plants, and that is what can happen. Next, please. So here is that we engage the people for, how to avoid unintended consequences of research. You may not be doing it, but somebody else can misuse it. Or bit carefulness is needed. If you are not careful, you can take it from the lab out with the clothes, with your hands, and that can go to the society. So that is that you understand all this, how to avoid. So for this, what we need is is concerned. Infectious diseases, personal genomics, neurotechnology, many CRISPR technology now. There are many advances for the good of human. Like you can have gene therapy for your diseases, but the same can be misused if a scientist can create something which can destroy the whole universe. So these are the things that we need to understand. specifically for low and middle income countries where we don't have enough money to secure the labs and you have all this, and that of diseases, etc. Next, please. So this is what we are doing in Pakistan. And now I invite the Polish, this university also to work together for international liaison, for relief, for how to understand and how can we have inclusive and equitable collaboration to understand all this. The problem in major university, the academia is that they don't have time for the society to talk to these issues. They keep it. It's not my job because they have the percentage of their time for teaching, for this, but we need some time for the society to make them understand what's happening. Next, please. And this is the education network that we are trying now in Federal Urdu University, that we will have promote cultural exchange, we will have education quality and global understanding about all this. If you look at the recent publication of 2024 Global Top 10 Risk, there we have AI, misinformation, social media. We have conflicts between the countries. We heard about Armenia, we look about the Middle East, the world is still so crazy. So that is that we understand all these issues that we have in the future, and of course release a biological agent. If they release it, nobody will be safe. You have watched Corona. Next, please. And the most important is even without having a biological weapon, you can through social media destroy, like hesitancy in vaccine. You say you have some information and people vaccinate themselves and there will be a problem, it will be spreading. So there are a lot of mistrust on the scientists, on the government, and that will create a problem in the society, and that is what delegitimize the science. They will say, oh, no, scientists are not doing good enough. Next, please. This is what we were doing when I was Secretary General of Pakistan Academy of Sciences, a lot of webinars, events throughout the world. And we addressed all the topics possible to talk in those 3 years, what's happening and how to avoid the future pandemic. So that is, you can, and when you talk about the, policymakers, pseudoscience, you imagine, and we talk about all this. Next, please. And what we need is that we need to have national, international, and local. This is not something which you can only address to your own nation. Now the germ doesn't understand, they don't have passport and visa. They can go anywhere. So you have to work, please. Next, please. So, and our collaboration were everywhere. We were collaborating with all institutes in the country, both international. We have a lot of links. Trying to, and Pakistan was very responsible. We had less damage in COVID as compared to other countries like neighboring India. They have more deaths, they had more problems. Next, please. So that is what we were doing. We publish information, we work with the society, and we had several publications on this. Next, please. Our international partners, global partners, now we have another good partner here in Poland, but we work with Polish Academy, we work with Indian Academy even, we work all over the world to talk about this issue. So joint policy to address this. One more thing very important was One Health research. Now, as I said here, I'm talking to international relations students, but you can, when we say One Health, it's not on human. It's human, it's animal, it's plants, it's environment, all considered together is One Health. If you destroy biodiversity, you will suffer. If you have animal, majority of the diseases come from animal, or from human to animal. So that is, you understand the issue of One Health, and that is what we did, the programs for international training on this One Health also through the US Academy of Sciences. Next, please. And we had some if you look at the international world, some very good international organizations that are working on this, and we need to have partnership to understand this international relation in terms of science. When I say the science is the biological science. Next, please. So what we need is to ensure biosecurity, to have understand the threat, to understand the dual use, and to have, treaties to prevent the national pandemic. Next, please. And for that, we need international collaboration and information that is available for you. Next, please. So for future direction, we need to have enhancing the infrastructure among the countries. We need to understand the capacity of the not only biological science, but international relation, political science. We have to work together to have public awareness to address this critical issue that we have. Next, please. So for that, we have challenges and solutions that we have to identify challenges what we face, like gaps, propose solution, and we look ahead for the emerging trends in biosecurity and biosafety. Next, please.
And now I think professor from Pakistan, Professor Shaista Tabassoon from University of Karachi, and as I mentioned before, the speech will be on security concern of state in the new world order. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor from Warmia University, from Mazury University, the fellows from the Federal Urdu University, and my greetings to Dr. Zaptafan Shedwali and the people who are sitting in Poland. My topic is the importance of the security as a major concern of states in the new international world order. As a student of international relations, we know that the leading principle of international relation is the state, and for state, it's the ensuring its security. The new international world order, the security of the state remains the primary concern of the states. And the structure of the new international world order has been made in such a way that the states, they are forced to compete with each other to secure more power. So when we talk about the international system, the new international world order, we see that the state is the primary actor in this international system. And what are the issues which are related to the state and state security? Mainly that there are two schools of thought. What I am doing is that I will be just very briefly talking about the concept of security. Then I'll go to the powers and the security through which the state can achieve the actors and the elements of its power. And finally, I will be talking about that how security, how the modern state is pursuing or trying to achieve its security. There are two different school of thoughts in the international relations study, the idealist and the realist. The realist see security as a deviation of power, and where an actor with enough power ultimately reach a dominating position within the in the world and would acquire security as a result. Power and then the security ultimately. While the idealist, they argues that this conception leads them not only to see the problem in a more holistic manner, but also that it focuses attention directly on the issue of war. Since war is a major threat arising from the national security problem, and solution to it would largely eliminate the problem from the international agenda. Means if the war be eliminated, if the war be averted, then ultimately peace be created, and peace is actually where the security may be achieved. So these are the two important school of thoughts which are present in the international system. A very prominent professor of international relations, Professor Hans J. Morgenthau, he talked about the different elements of power, how a state may achieve maximum power. And in fact, this is situation, or this formula is very much applicable in the present new international world order. Morgenthau talked about that there are many tangible elements and there are intangible elements. Geography, especially the resources, they cannot be changed, but they may add in the power of a state. But there are many factors that may be increase or reduce or decrease related to the state's power. Like, for example, one which the professor just now have talked about, that militarization. The military weapons, arms, the quality and quantity of the weapons, then the training of the soldiers, the number of the forces, etc. There are so many added provisions, like, for example, nuclear technology, the nuclear weapons, the missiles, the submarines. These are all the militarizations which we have witnessed after Second World War, especially, and that had been taken as the power of some state. I mean, the powers that have emerged after Second World War, they were actually militarily strong. And in fact, in the first phase of the first 2 decades after the Second World War, we see that the security of the state were defined on the basis of military capability, means the states which were capable of manufacturing, assembling, and who have huge arsenal, they were accepted as a powerful state. But gradually, this had been changed in the international world order, new international order. A number of the challenges and threats that have been added to define the concept of security. Like, for example, some traditional threats and some non-traditional threats have been added. And one cannot deny the importance of issues like climate change, which is in fact one of a very serious threat to the state. And the climatic changes that have been going on in the world for the last, we can say for the last more than a decade, is really a global threat. And that can be met by a joint and combined efforts of the state. There are some other, I believe that there are some other non-traditional threats. For example, what we have been facing here in Pakistan is propaganda. I mean, that has not been outlined and that have not been very much given emphasis by the international scholars. But I think that propaganda through the social media, propaganda, wrong information, fake ideas, etc., that had molded the public opinion, and it's a very, very taken as a very serious threat to the state security. And addition to that, there are some other issues like, for example, the violation of the human rights that is considered as a non-traditional security area, and then the insurgency, the non-state actors. These are non-state actors either been fighting from within the state, or they have the support from the neighbors or from any international actor who have political interest in the particular state or in the region because of political, economic, whatever the reasons could be. They are posing a serious threat to the state security. If the state how the state may come out from this security challenges and threats. It's in fact a globalized world where the threats are also globalized in nature. Like, for example, the non-traditional security threats are globalized in nature, and that can be averted or rather faced by a combined and globalized effort. So number of the treaties and agreements have been concluded, but a little success is seen. So some of the non-traditional security challenges are still a real challenge of the international world order. And along with that, I think that the non-state actors who have now been aligning against the power of the state is one of the biggest threat to the international system and to the state itself. And the state themselves feels that that the other states are not really a threat to them. Rather, these non-traditional security issues are a much problem for the state survival. They are challenging the very structure of the state and also the individual. So the emergence of the non-state actors challenging the state sovereignty and authority in the international system. This new international world order, which is emerging, especially after what is happening in the occupied areas of Palestine, especially, and the occupied areas of Kashmir, I think that's a very new. It's an eye-opening for the international community to think about that if the state's power grow to such extent that it threatens the individuals, the people who are living on the territory, within their territory, then the state itself becomes a threat to the individual. In fact, this leads to another dimension of the state's power and the security, because for the state, for a powerful state or for a developed world, what is the primary concern? Is it really the security of itself, means the security of the state, or security of its individuals who are living in that state? So, because as I mentioned that the individual's security, it should be the primary concern of the state. But in many situations, we see that the state itself is more concerned of its security than the security of the individual. So that is why we are facing a large number of failed states where the system, the human security is not being taken care of. The number of the issues like health, education, their well-being, social security, they are being neglected, and the state has given this importance to its own security. In fact, it's a very complex situation in this international and globalized world where the state need to realize that whose security is more important. The internal security, the internal threats which is coming from the individuals when the state machinery itself is violating the rights of the individual, or the security within from the system where the state is surviving. State is actually taking a number of the measures for protecting or for taking the this responsibility of its by like, for example, they continue to militarize and the power multiplied, the type of weaponaries, more deadly weapons, more casualties. And then the question arises that whether the state is successful in achieving its security or it's become more insecure, because it leads more weapons actually leads to the security dilemma that the security the weapons, they actually don't bring the security, rather the insecurity. So as I've said that it's a very complicated new approaches, new additions, dimensions that have been added to the international system. And we are here to discuss that, to explore that what are the best possible options for the state to achieve its security. I must thank the participants and the organizer for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Very much, Professor. Thank you for presentation of the new approach to the security, showing us the importance of security for the state in changing international order. And now it's time for Professor Fernando Fita Ortega from Valencia University, our friend. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dzień dobry. I'm really happy to be here with all of you, and thank you very much for your invitation to take part in this event, which I'm already have taken several notes, which are really interesting. I will try to finish in 10, 11 minutes, no more than 12, and my speech is about the role of non-state actors in promoting labor fundamental rights. And I would like to focus on who, what, and how. The first thing we need to take into account is that, as Professor Arkadiusz Subkowski said, how to ensure security. And I guess that the first look we have to do, considering my area of expertise, which is social law, labor law, employment law, is to focus on ILO Constitution, where it says that universal and lasting peace can be established only if it's based upon social justice. What is clear that for getting this social justice, all international institutions and even national governments are calling for non-state actors to take part on that. We can see that in the UN 2030 goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, in the goal number 17, which is named Revitalize the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development. They ask exactly for that. These partnerships between governments, private sector, and civil society. And it's the same, it happens the same with the European Pillar of Social Rights, where social partners have been repeatedly mentioned as the key actors for implementing the pillar both at national and European Union level. Okay, but who? What non-state agents? First of all, we can think about NGOs, because of course, European Union, as for example, they look at them in order to promote the respect of fundamental rights. There are some programs at the European Union level giving funds to NGOs in order to promote rights related to equality, citizenship, employment, social innovation, gender equality, and rights of persons with disabilities. But of course, in social area, trade unions are the most important, let's say, actors, non-state actors, in order to promote these fundamental rights, both at international, European, and even national level. It can be, it has some contradictions of what level can be reached the most, well, the goal, because we have to take into account the different policies that they have, the different area of intervene that they can reach. And what is important as well is to notice some contradictions we can find at international level and sometimes at national level. At international level, as I've been saying, there is a constant ask for trade unions as social partners. But sometimes at national level, we can see that there are policies against trade unions. They look for legitimate the trade unions, and with this neoliberal perspective, trade unions are anti-competitive, are seen as anti-competitive organizations, anathema to economic freedom, enemies of jobs and productive growth. Second question, what? What are fundamental rights? Are the same labor human rights, fundamental rights? There is no definition of what to understand for fundamental rights, labor human rights. If we focus again into the ILO Declaration of Philadelphia, the first statement of this declaration is that labor is not a commodity. But what does it mean? Basically, it means to put people at the center of focus. Legislation must take into account what are the people needs. Then that implies maintaining respect for human dignity in the workplace. But here, once more, we have the problem. We don't have a definition of dignity as well. Our constitutions refers too many times to dignity, but there is not an exact definition. So we need to draw conclusions about the practical situations and normally drawn by the jurisprudence, saying in what areas or in what aspects dignity is being respected or not. However, what is really important to stress, to underline, is that dignity implies the respect of fundamental rights of employees in the exercise of the contract activity. Somehow, this is said again in the ILO Declaration of Philadelphia, when it reads that all human beings, irrespective of race, creed, or sex, have the right to pursue both their material well-being and their spiritual development in conditions of freedom and dignity, of economic security and equal opportunity. But what fundamental rights? Of course, the ILO says something in the ILO Declaration of Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work. They refer to the freedom of association, of collective bargaining, elimination of forced labor, elimination of child labor, elimination of discrimination, and finally, and what is important, and professor who took the floor before me, Saista Taveson, said, safe and healthy working environment. And that is important because it's not only to protect employees from the environmental conditions, but also to protect environment from the productive activity, which causes, of course, quite a lot of problem, and it's one of the reasons of the climatic change. But it's not enough. We need to focus also in all the protection in corporate governance. That means to establish some limits to all the powers that the entrepreneur has, limits on her capacity of establishing orders or giving orders, the limits on the power to control if those orders are obeyed or not, and the limits on disciplinary power. With these limits and recognizing the social justice, the idea of social justice, decent work conditions, is really important in order to establish this the protection of the fundamental rights. And I would like to stress, I only have just a couple of minutes before finishing, that trade unions are really important to defend democracy inside the industrial relations system. And for doing so, for defending democracy, we need to promote transparency. Without transparency, no single country could say that it respects democracy. And exactly the same happens with the employment relations. That's how trade unions could develop their function of decommodification, so defending the fundamental rights. And basically, how to do that? We need to promote fundamental rights, and of course trade unions and NGOs, they are trying to do that through the different channels they have, and which is more important is give them powers for controlling and establishing a method for denunciation. That means to reinforce effectiveness of fundamental rights. How? Maybe supporting global strikes, supporting legally global strikes, maybe establishing support of consumers, social labeling, establishing social clauses in World Trade Organizations, in these agreements. Okay, this has been working for many years, but it still doesn't have good results. So I think it's time to think if we need, if there is a need for an international transnational jurisdiction, similar to what happens to the International Court of Justice, which is not working as we would like to, but it's, at least there is this organization, this court, in order to defend fundamental rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Fernando. Thank you to underline the role of non-actors in the international relations and promotion of the labor fundamental rights, because in many times, in many cases, about these rights. So now the last speaker, and this is very is a real challenge for me in a few minutes, just to sum up my reflections about diplomacy. I prepare my speech for 30 minutes and then I cut to 15, and now I think it's 5 minutes, and this is a little bit problem. But when I monitoring what is going on current diplomacy, I am very much afraid that direction is not proper, according, of course, at me. And then I would like to mention some my reflection, and I would like to go history of diplomacy, because now the nature of diplomacy is going back to the Middle Ages, and then because if I can quote it, Ambrose Bierce quoted in David's dictionary in 1906, diplomacy as an art of what? Of lying for one's country. And now in the student handbook on history of diplomacy, stated that diplomacy was a secret activity connected with spying and conspiracy, and the term had a pejorative connotation. And it was in the past. We also know the famous definition of diplomat made by British diplomat Sir Henry Wotton in 1604. The ambassador is the honest gentleman abroad for his country. And of course, the role of diplomacy evaluated through the centuries, but turning point in understanding diplomacy, we are turning point for modern diplomacy. It was the end of the First World War when US President Woodrow Wilson declared the 14 points. For us in Poland, the 4 last is the most important, because it was related to our independence, regaining independence as a Polish state. In Polish history, we say Józef Piłsudski, Marshall, and his, soldiers regain independence, but in fact, without the will of superpowers, it wasn't be possible. And I would like to mention first 4 points. It means open diplomacy without secret treaties, economic free trade on the seas during the peace, but also during war, equal trade conditions, and decrease armament among all nations. But now we have quite different situation. I mentioned before that we are spending more and more money for armament, and because we want to be more point of view was quite different. And of course, creation of the League of Nations, the last point, is very important. It was visionary set of principles promoting not only free trade, but disarmament, self-determination, and preventing future conflicts through the international cooperative framework. Not competition. I think this is one of the aim of diplomacy. But now, when we are talking about the future of international relations, the neo-realism paradigm is the most popular to explain what is going on in international relations. And still, the most popular definition is this definition of diplomacy, which was formulated by Hans Morgenthau. It's very quoted. Maximum effect for national interest. National interests are the most important. And then what we can see, the confrontation is one of the main features of contemporary diplomacy. Zero-sum game approach dominates. One wins, one not. That's a mutual game. And big stick diplomacy from the position of strength is used very often. And what is the tool? Sanction. And then, of course, they are more effective. But if you want to create a stable world, we should use another tools. And then in my title was about questions and answers. And of course, questioning is very important skill in scientific research. And we can, of course, formulate general and detailed questions. And the catalog of questions relates primarily to what diplomacy should be, how we should define it, and what is the role of diplomacy in international relations. And unfortunately, because of the lack of time, how we should define diplomacy, why this diplomacy is very important. This is for maybe future next my speech, but I think we should be engaged as a scholar scientist in scientific diplomacy, citizen diplomacy, and we should decentralize of diplomacy, democratize diplomacy, because as it was said before from Professor Fernando, there is a growing importance and need for non-state actors. And I am a supporter of the concept of para-diplomacy, a multi-track diplomacy. If you want to live in peace, not only head of states should communicate, but individuals. And I think this conference is also such an example that we have such and certain stereotypes about Pakistan, about neighbors of Pakistan, and because of such we could understand each other and cooperate, and the cooperation will bring fruitful results. So thank you for your attention. It's time for a coffee break, but is a such suggestion that before coffee, before tea, some cakes, we could take pictures, photo. All participants, so that they survive and stay whole plenary session. Okay, please, and then we will take a photograph.